Recovery to pre-recession levels could be at least 3 to 5 years away. That's not a very appealing prospect, Noel.
Don't shoot the messenger. I suppose it's really it's based on the historic correlation between economic activity and travel. And we're looking at a scenario now where for Western Europe and for North America, GDP real term growth is probably going to be around 2% per annum from next year for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I suppose typically travel recovery will lag that somewhat. So we're looking for a very slow recovery, maybe a bit fragile, but it will be a slow recovery over the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, not great. And this report also suggests strongly, Noel, that certain markets and certain market segments were not doing well before the recession, particularly Britain and the pure holiday sector.
Yeah, if you look at the British market, which was historically Ireland's number one market, we were getting about 1.7 million holidaymakers each year throughout most of the last decade. It didn't grow, it was fairly static.
Yeah.
Last year it dropped to about 1.1 because of the recession, which coincidentally was about the same number of mainland Europeans that came on holidays last year.
Correct, yeah.
So because of the importance of the British market, I think we've got to reclaim growth from the British market.
Sure. And being an island, of course, good affordable access is critical to that. And while we've enjoyed tremendous access for more than a decade, you have some concerns about the future.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees that the access situation, particularly the low-cost airfares and so forth, new routes, were one of the main drivers of growth in the past. If you look at what's happened now, say some of the carriers are contracting service, there are fewer Irish people travelling abroad, which obviously impacts their carryings as well. Summer capacity this year is about where it was at 2006, 2007. So there has been some contraction, and certainly the survey we carried out amongst the industry, it's one of their major concerns.
Yeah. And also in the report you've looked at the lack of competitiveness of Ireland. Tell us about that, and surely we're making great strides in the last couple of years in regaining competitiveness.
I think we've regained a little competitiveness, but I don't think we can be smug about it or complacent. It goes back to, I suppose, the first 5 years up to 2005. The rate of inflation in Ireland was way above the rate of inflation of our competitors or the markets from which we draw most of our visitors.
That's true.
So we got way ahead, we got out of line there. It slowed down somewhat. We were still running ahead of them for up to about 2008. Okay, we've had price decrease in the last 18 months. Certainly the hotel sector we don't have an issue with. There's no issue in the market with them. Super value. In fact, some of the prices are probably not sustainable. But it's the incidental expenditure, and I think all the research shows that it's the cup of coffee or the pint of beer or the meal that people are dissatisfied with. And we still have a chunk of our market who expressed themselves dissatisfied with the value for money last year. So we've still some way to make up.
So work to be done.
Oh yes.
The report also highlights the need for adequate destination marketing funds, and it recommends an increase in Marketing Dublin, that is, as a distinct destination. In fact, it says that Dublin's success as a destination will underpin any recovery in tourism to the country. That sounds a bit like consultant speak, but maybe you might develop that point for us now.
I'm sure I've been accused of consultant speak before. Last year, about 2 of every 5 holiday visitors to Ireland, came only to Dublin. So their stay was exclusively Dublin. And that had increased from about 1 in 3, or less than 1 in 3, about 5 years ago. So Dublin has become more popular as a destination. Number of factors driving that: the access, short breaks, urban tourism. And if we had a portfolio of products here, Dublin has been our top selling product for the last number of years. So I think we need to put some effort behind it, because clearly there's a market out there for it. Also, Dublin is not just a capital city, it's also very accessible into the countryside.
Unlike many other major capitals.
Correct. And if you take it, most visitors to Wicklow, for instance, are staying in Dublin, but they're visiting and spending time in Wicklow. And likewise they can get out into the surrounding areas. So I think...
well, that's one good legacy of the Celtic Tiger, I suppose, that there is a tremendous interurban road network in place.
And I think the infrastructure in Dublin's improved enormously. And also the product has improved. So it's growing in popularity. And it's what people want.
And finally, Noel, TTC looked at the domestic market, which of course drove much of the growth that was enjoyed for the last 7 or 8 years. What's your prognosis here?
Not too sure I have a prognosis, Eamon. Yes, it is undoubtedly true. Say the rate of growth and demand from the domestic market, both for home holidays and holidays abroad, was quite spectacular over the last 10 years. Clearly that's not going to continue. But last year, for instance, very hearteningly, the decline in the demand for short breaks at home was less than the decline in demand for overseas trips.
That's right. I
So
think
there's
that's
some shift.
continuing this year.
I think it is very much,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of effort has gone in by the industry and by Fult Ireland into the domestic market.
Yeah.
So I think there's a market share gain there,
Yeah.
and also I think the habit of going away for short breaks is firmly established in most people's lifestyles at this stage.
Yes.
So we will see some recovery there.
Yeah, of course, by itself, it's not capable of replacing all of the overseas.
No, simply because of the volume, it's not
volumes,
capable of doing that. But it's an essential part of the mix, particularly for hotels.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're heavily dependent on the domestic market, most hotels.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that it will recover.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Even if you don't agree with every single thing in this report, it's still essential reading. And I don't regard it as pessimistic in that a pessimist is one who makes difficulties of his opportunities, while an optimist is one who makes opportunities of his difficulties. So for a copy of the full report, go to www.itic.ie and click on research.
Thank you, Amy.